And good evening. Welcome to this edition of, this is our first in the second season of Talkin' Art. Yay! We've made it 2 seasons. I wanted to start out by, well, first introducing myself. I'm Arizona Low. And with me is the wonderful, brilliant co-host Tammy Cook. Hi, Tammy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Awesome.
Good. And also with us is John Bailey. Hi, John.
Hello, Arizona. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Now that everything's working.
I bet your weather's warmer, although we got up in the 70s today. I bet you're warmer in Florida.
Yeah, we were in the low 80s.
How about you, Tammy? Are you right there with them?
Yeah, I mean, it was in the 70s today. It was nice. Although
nice.
It's supposed to rain for the next 5 days, so.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're supposed to get snow for the next 3. You want to trade?
Oh, no, I'll take the rain.
Yeah.
Well, I want to let everybody know that we do have Comment Tracker running. So ask your questions when we get going, and we'll make sure we get them answered, hopefully. I did want to take a moment to welcome a new member to the galleries on today's Visions, and that is Al Thomas. And he runs Al Thomas Photos. So, Al, welcome. We're so glad to have you within the community. And so, let's see. Ron Schneeberger just checked in. Hi, Ron. How are you this evening? And John, you and I, when we got together a couple weeks ago to plan the show, we got into this really interesting conversation about digital art and photographers. And have you noticed, because I kind of think I'm seeing a trend that photographers are delving more and more into digital art. With the community you run on Fine Art America, are you noticing that same trend?
Absolutely. I was going to say, with my very unscientific sampling pool of the Fine Art America group, there's been, over the last several months, I'll say, a marked upswing in submitting digital art of some types. Digital photography, however you want to call it. I call it photographic art, but it's all the same thing. And it's been increasing a lot. And you can almost see some people experimenting with it and getting it more down and more down each time they use it. It's been interesting.
Which, I mean, are you seeing the trend toward oil paintings, or just a great variety?
Yeah, well, I guess should say there's a couple of things. There's because I'll make a distinction. The group is a wonderful mixture of all types of artists, from paint artists to photographers, digital artists, fractal artists, and then a lot of the paint artists have been also using digital painting, using digital brushes to create work, and that's been going on for some time. And I'm not a paintbrush artist. The hand never goes where my eye and brain are trying to tell it to. So, you know, I really think those people are wonderful and gifted. But they've had a pretty, for some time now, I think, in that world, they've had some pretty sophisticated software to do the digital painting in a true paintbrush, style. Recently, there's been some huge upgrades in digital art programs that someone like myself would use, where it's, rather than a brusher, it's more like a slider, and templates and a myriad of sliders, and the complexity, the variables they've introduced have just made it something that has drawn, I think, well, it's drawn me into it because it's now, instead of a toy or a game, it seems more creative with that kind of capability. And I think the upswing I've seen in my group has coincided with these releases. In one case, there's a couple of upgrades. In another case, a new product got released during that time. And I don't think that's a coincidence.
So you think that they're using other apps besides like Photoshop, and that was the whole reason I mentioned oil painting, was because Photoshop has just recently come out with an oil painting type feature.
Yes, and actually, though, they pulled a fast one on us. With Photoshop 2014, it had the oil painting. I think they called it the filter, but it was in that section of menu. And
yes,
that's where I first started getting into it, and I loved it. It was relatively simple, but it also had a lot of variables that you could apply. And it was basically the oil painting style. And I have some in my portfolio on FAA from that. But when they came out with Photoshop CC and that subscription-based software usage package, they removed oil painting.
Did they? Because
they did.
I didn't go with that whole online thing. I kept my other version.
They removed it. I don't normally, but one day I just decided to go on a Adobe forum and see what people were saying about it, and there was a long list of people who were complaining to Adobe, put it back in Photoshop. And I guess someone representing Adobe came onto that forum and left a note and saying, well, the one thing they did do is when they created CC, they made it compatible with running another version of Photoshop at the same time, so you could still use the oil painting feature in the old one, and then working in the new one. But it makes me wonder, because it looked like there was a lot more people than me that were enjoying that, and I'm wondering and I had no idea, but I just started wondering if they didn't see, hey, we have something good here, and maybe it should be standing on its own and not under the umbrella of a menu on Photoshop. So we might be hearing more from them later.
I hope so. How about you, Tammy? Do you do digital art with your photography?
I've done a little bit. I've just not gotten into it a lot, but as I'm learning more about Photoshop, I'm starting to play around some. It's kind of starts getting addicted. As you start getting into it. So I'm kind of I'm having fun with it. Playing around.
But John was mentioning several other apps that he uses besides Photoshop, which fascinated me, and I was hoping he would speak to them a little bit more.
Sure. I was upset when the oil painting feature wasn't part of CC anymore, and I started searching around for what could I use, and there were some programs out there, but one of the things that I do periodically is, each group has their own discussion forums, but then FAA, Fine Art America as a whole, has the community forums. And I went on there and searched and found there was several discussions going on about using digital art software with photographs. And there were several programs that they mentioned, and I can't remember all of them, and some people liked one, some people liked the other. One of the programs that a lot of people liked was based on making brush strokes, which really appealed to the people that have that in their artistic lineage. And then, another one that has been around for a while was a Topaz program. Can't remember the name of it now. It starts with an S. But they had come out a little while ago, I guess maybe a year or two, with Topaz Impression.
Mm-hmm.
And just a few months ago, made an upgrade to it, which added, I believe, to me anyway, a lot of features. So I got the good old free trial, 30-day free trial download, and started playing with it, and I loved it. And it has so many more painting styles that you can select. Um,
It does. That's what I did. I got the trial too, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh wow.
yeah. So
Wow.
I
Yeah, I'm
started,
sitting here looking at it, and they got quite a few products actually at topazlabs.com.
Right.
right, and what after I started using it, and I fell in love with it, I ended up buying it, and I started creating some of that, primarily straight painting. Looked like painting type of work with the program, and like I said, it's the Topaz Impression appeals to people more like with my background, where you can use sliders and make adjustments and whatnot, which is sounds kind of similar to some of the earlier tools, except this has just got so many more variables, so many more options that you can play with, that it's hard to create precisely the same outcome from the beginning photograph twice in a row. It's that complex, which gave me a much stronger feeling of satisfaction that I actually was creating something, and I felt like I was creating art with this thing. Let me tell you a little story to tell you where I came from and where the software has come from. Back around 18, 19 years ago, when my daughter is engaged to my future son-in-law, one way or another, whether they came to me or I went to them, I ended up taking on the task of making the brochures for their wedding. And by brochures, it was some heavier paper with some designs on it, run through a dot matrix printer, so it wasn't anything real fancy, but I did try to jazz it up. I took their engagement picture and I scanned it in the scanner, and then I took it and I put it in the background, and then I put the front page information over the top of it, and then filled out the insides and everything. Well, here's where I'm headed with this story. I couldn't just leave it at that, so before I showed it to him, I had this old morphing software, real simplistic morphing software, and I went and took that image, and I took Dan, my son-in-law's, to be forehead, and pulled it back over his hair, so he looked bald with fringe of hair on either side of him, and that was now in the engagement picture. So when they came to see what it looked like, I showed it to him, and then I also happened to mention to my daughter, and here, now you can see what your husband's going to look like in 20 years. And she enjoyed it. Apparently he didn't really, but he put up with it.
Oh, yeah. Now the question is, it's been about 20 years from
exactly.
What you're saying. So
and
does he look anything like that now?
No. He still has a pretty good head of hair, and is pretty young looking for his advanced stage. But that was fun, and that got me into trying to play with it, but it was so limited what you could do. It was a great fun, and it was really more just a toy. It was a game to play, and you could be creative with it in a way. You could show it to family. There wasn't a whole lot more you could do with it. Well, that's just like an embryonic thing compared to the program Topaz Impression that's out today, where you can create serious works of digital art, you can create fun works of digital art, and everything in between. After I started playing with impressions, I came across that Topaz had just released a new program called Glow, which is more of a jazzy, fun kind of thing in first looks and first use. It'll jazz up your photograph, or if you taking a photograph that you turned into digital art, you can then also use it in Glow, and you can add some special effects, lightning, and electricity shooting through things, and some colors and all that, and you can be pretty loud with it. And for certain kinds of works, that's fun. I was impressed with our visit up to Devil's Tower, so immediately I thought of Devil's Tower, and I'd been reading about all the Indian tales about the mysteries of Devil's Tower, and of course its association with third encounters, or what is it, Encounters of the Third Kind, the aliens visiting us, Richard Dreyfuss, and so I used one of my photos of Devil's Tower, and I used this glow, and I lit up Devil's Tower, and I had this kind of electric border around it, and had stuff going on in the sky, and it looked pretty cool, and I enjoyed it, and it was kind of like the initial thing that someone would do with a new thing to play with, but it was enough that I actually put it in my portfolio, and I got some nice responses about it. Well, it wasn't much longer when it started looking like, well, wait a minute, that's loud and proud, but what about subtle? What can you do with it with subtlety? And that's where I started finding what I really love about these programs, is you can develop true works of art that have a special look and a special feel that you can't really get with. You can get really close to it with things like HDR photography and whatnot, but it gives such a feel that a lot of my stuff that I've been titling in some kind of a Wonderland fairy tale type of titles, and because it lends itself to my eyes as looking like that. Well, I started looking, and I was seeing more and more of that kind of thing, and some of the first things that I've been doing with these programs showing up. I get over 300 images submitted to my group each day on images that excite you. There's like 2,000 members, and so I see a big sample for one person to see each day, and I'm seeing a lot more of that digital type of work showing up from people that I only ever used to see photography showing up in. There's even some people who have gotten so crazy, painters have taken, they digitalize their painting in order to get it there on the portfolio. They'll actually use Photoshop, start adding some photo elements that they want to add to it, then go into one of these, or maybe they use Photoshop too, because skilled Photoshop user can do a lot of these things just with Photoshop. But I've seen them use some of this jazzy stuff and come up with this incredible collage, and they describe it as that's exactly what they've done in their description. It's like a three-dimensional art object. It's really cool.
I think that's taking mixed media to the max when you start painting something and then you pull it into the computer and make alterations on the computer.
Yeah, I do too.
We do have a comment. Ron Snaberger says, too much to learn and too little time.
Yeah, I know. You're right, Ron. And, all my life I've been what is that phrase they say, involved in all kinds of things but master of none? That's just kind of been my way. I love to learn new things.
Jack of all trades and master of none. That would be me.
That's it. But in a lot of ways, though, I feel like I've been able to integrate my photography. I feel like I'm a photographer first, but I've been able to integrate my photography with a photographic art, which gives me a great deal of satisfaction, to the point that I'll actually look for scenes to take with my camera that I think would be fitting for the art. And anyway, but you're right. Sometimes the person does best when they pick one thing and truly specialize in it and master it. Although I don't know if you'll ever master, totally photography or any art of any kind.
Well, it's like I put out on my profile. I am an amateur, and I will always be an amateur.
Well, let me let me say one thing too, that the first time I created a something in impressions out of one of my photographs. I let it sit on my computer for several days because I wasn't sure of myself and a little bit embarrassed about uploading it to my portfolio on FAA, because there is this little friction, if you will, with people that use this technique to create what appears to be a painting, and they do nothing to try to remove that impression and put it up there again next to someone who's been working hard brushstroke by brushstroke to create this painting. And we have a lot of painters in our group, and I had already previously received some complaints, not about people in the group, but just in general about, you know, all this canned art that's coming out of these software programs and flooding as it started to be seen, and for all the world being shown as art, and is basically doing the least you can in the art program, basically using the basics that they already preset and creating what looks like a nice painting and then putting it up for sale. And so I could see where painters would take that real well, and some won't go out of their way to advertise that theirs is unique individual brush strokes and no brush stroke looks the same, and I can understand where they're coming from to try to create those distinctions. So I was kind of loath to all of a sudden seem to turn traitor to that element of the group and start putting up the art, but I've fallen so much in love with it, I finally did. But I labeled it as, I think initially I called it my digital art, then I started calling it photographic art. I just felt like that was better because it's closer to my photograph. And then I have where I got really crazy with it, I actually called it jazzed up art, and I have a gallery called jazzed up art. You know, so I think it is very important. I think it's a legitimate art style of its own, but I think it needs to be clearly understood that that's what it is, and not to, by implicitly or complicitly, pass it off as some other form of art. By the same token, I see times where this item, this image, is posted as a photograph, and it is it looks like it's been, art out of a can, because it looks anything but a photograph, but it's called a photograph. So I think we do need to be careful, not have to take a back seat as one style is inferior from another, but just to be honest and not try to, or even take a chance of misleading people that they think they're buying something that is not, it really isn't is. And I think I've seen some of the more traditional photographers that didn't think much about all the things we do with filters and HDR and even other programs to pop up or jazz up the photograph, saturate, you know what I mean. Some of them are starting to do it now, because as time goes on, it becomes, instead of this rebel uprising, it starts to become part of the many different forks in the road of art that we have.
Well,
this process.
And I think it's cool that you personally make a distinction between digital art and digital photographic art.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are digital artists who spend hours upon
Absolutely.
hours creating from scratch, from a white.
Right. I agree, and I think that each form of art should stand on its own, and the adherents to that style, shouldn't have to guess. Just be open, and the more I've gotten into playing with my photographic art, the higher I'm holding my head up now these days. because the process of creating some of these things is becoming quite involved, and each piece is quite unique. And when I've run it through several steps, I told you this during our meet and greet, but for example, I take a photograph, and I keep all my photographs in Lightroom, and then I do some initial work in Lightroom and crop it to a standard dimension. I usually try to, so if you're buying a print, you could find a frame for it easy enough without everything having to be customized. And so I do all that initially in Lightroom, and then I export it over to Photoshop, and I use the Camera Raw application in Photoshop, because I love the new tools that CC has, where you can go and use almost, it's like a brush that you can actually use and do selectively a lot more with you know, the contrast, the exposure, the saturation, whatever you're doing, that you instead of doing to the whole image, or instead of a bracket, you know, putting a border around a section and just doing that section, or a circle, you can get very specific, and I love that. And then I take that and I put it into, I've fallen in love with NIK's filters to spice up, if you will, or like Scott Kelby calls, makes your image pop. I do a lot of that in NIK Filters, and then I bring it back, and at that point, it's either a photograph, or I take it further to transition it into photographic art, where I take that finished photograph, but I want to do something different with it. I want to create a different mood with it, and then I'll take that finished photograph and put it into Impressions and work on it there. And then in some cases, if I want to put a little mystery or mystical mood in it, I'll take it from Impressions and go in and back to Photoshop, export it into Glow, and I can bring some highlights. Glow is wonderful for for appearing to darken an image, but so many sections of it are still light and clear. The overall mood is kind of like an evening mood, but there's a clarity, and actually, if you really thought about it, perhaps a brightness in some areas that's maybe a little bit more than what would be for that time of day. But if you're subtle enough with it, it just creates a magical look in my mind. And so that's what it takes, all of those programs to get to that point. So by the time I'm done with it, ready to post it, I have a work of art, and I'll hold it up against anyone else and say, this is art, and it's unique, it's creative, and you know, you probably can't even duplicate it, because I know I can't.
But Tammy, didn't you have some problems with Lightroom?
I did, but I got it worked out. So, oh, excuse me. Yeah, with the colors, it was me.
Yeah, it's always me too.
Well, yeah, once I figured it out, I had my color settings not matching Photoshop, so it was messing up my.
Oh yeah.
My when I went to download my photos, and you know how that works. It was taking off the saturation. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still old school enough. I don't mess with Lightroom at all. I just immediately go into Photoshop and do everything right within Photoshop.
Yeah.
Well, after that, I stayed with Photoshop after that month-long ordeal, but I am really seeing the need of Lightroom and the benefits of storing your photos there, and how convenient it is to have everything there, and they're coming out with some amazing new things in Lightroom. So it's actually, you know, and actually you're able to add the NIK into the Lightroom and all the other you know, stuff. And I think can you add Topaz into Lightroom? I'm not sure. I haven't tried that.
No, not yes. I think you can.
Yeah, I didn't want for sure. I hadn't tried that.
I'm not sure. I know that NIK and one-on-one, those kinds
Right,
of
one-on-one.
photographic software programs you can
Yeah.
export straight from Lightroom.
But it is a great benefit storing photos and being able to go back and forth. So
That's cool. Well, we have a question from the audience. Dave here, not Sharon, and that's Sharon Hedman.
I'll be an old friend of mine. Way old friend of mine. Hi, Dave.
Could a digital painting be transferred to a surface other than paper or canvas for, like, example, mirror or similar item? I know how to transfer prints, laser prints onto fabric, glass, wood, and things like that. Do you know, can you speak to any of that, John?
Well, I know that I don't know a lot about that either, but I do know that, for example, the products that you can get out of Fine Art America include the acrylic and more than just paper and canvas.
All right.
So
I know that to transfer it onto canvas or to glass, you can use gesso. You can print out a laser copy. It has to be a laser copy, so you print it out on your computer and you go down to the copy shop and you get a copy of it. And then you can gesso that, and that will transfer it onto canvas or glass.
Okay, Dave, I could make a T-shirt for you with it on it, though.
go.
Tammy, do you have any questions for him before I hit him with the next question I have?
No, go right ahead. You're doing great. I'm
Good.
learning some cool stuff here. I'm going to have to go check you out over there in Fine Arts America and see all this stuff going on.
I've been following John on Twitter and been a member of your community. I know I've been a member of your community over a year.
Yeah.
I think I've been following you for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I have to be your new groupie.
Cool.
His community, Images that Excite, is the name of the community, and Tammy, you really should join it.
Oh yeah, I love new things. If anybody knows me, I definitely like interesting, different anything. So
Come on in. The water's fine.
Sounds perfect for me.
I even had one of my images featured on there, which surprised me.
Why does that surprise you, Arizona?
Because of the huge amount of absolutely fantastic artists that he has in his group. I mean, he has over 2,000 members.
Are you saying I slipped up on yours?
Yes, I think you did. I think you goofed up.
We're like, oh my goodness.
No, not at all. Yeah, that.
So I was going to ask, do you find that people think, because when I went out and researched digital photography art, I found a lot of disparaging comments about it.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it is coming into its own finally, or are people still thinking of it as being less than even just a straight photograph?
I think it's still coming into its own. That it's in the process of coming into its own. I think there are still a number of people that aren't convinced that it's something new and unique so much as just a lazy person's way of getting something done. And the problem is it can be used that way. I mean, sometimes when I was checking it out, testing things, I would just simply go into Impressions, choose a certain style, and just leave all the selections as they had done it, and within a minute hit a button and bring it out into Photoshop, and I had myself a painting. So from that standpoint, there'll always be that potential problem. But if you can, I think you can tell quality one of the things that just has been so wonderful for me, and the reason I'm talking numbers is not because I'm looking for numbers. I just never dreamt that the numbers would be what they are. And there's over 40,000 images that have been submitted to that group. Now that's a nice sampling by all different kind of artists. That's a nice sampling for me to see. I've looked at every one of them. And I have learned so much, and my eye has developed so much by this basic training, forced having to do this, because members of other groups, they have beautiful galleries, and I never take the time to look at them. But in this group, I have to look at them, and I've learned so much. So there's different kinds of art, like abstract art, that I don't have a real good understanding, and before this group I had no understanding, but I've been taken by abstract art that this group produces, and I've gotten into some of it, you know, and I've looked some things up on the internet, and you know, some of it's clicked. There's still some abstract art that you know, I can't really seem to get a handle on. There's others that it's just great. I love it. And it was, even the part I couldn't understand, I felt like I could tell whether it was quality work or not, is the point I'm trying to make.
Well,
and so,
you know, quality work speaks. It moves, and it, you know, not only does it move your eye, it moves your emotions, it moves your heart, it moves your mind.
Right. And I think, at least maybe I'm just being hopeful or, you know, Pollyannish, but I think as people get used to this, what I call is an evolving art form, it's just part of the process that happens all the time. Art forms evolve. That people will get over the initial jolt or hit that goes, wow, look at all those electric things flying through the sky, and instead will start resting their eyes on good photographic art versus just everyday or nothing, or obviously something that really doesn't have a lot put into it. It's not grabbing me, it's not really doing anything for me, photographic art. Just like probably many other styles of art can fall in the same ways. So I see that because I see more artists that haven't been part of it starting to be part of it. So I think they're experiencing the same thing. And I know that when I first got into it, I was making some junk, and I was going, wow, you know, because it was new and it was exciting. And then you start to settle in, and you start to learn some ins and outs, and you also start to get ideas of something you're actually trying to get to or achieve, and it becomes a tool to create art. And, you know, art will speak for itself.
We have a couple of comments from the audience. Tammy, get your sound effects going because we need a little bit of laughter on this one.
Uh-oh.
Ron says when Tammy gets near the camera or gets near the water, she loses her camera.
Yes, I do.
Oh, great. I didn't know we had sound effects. You have any raspberries?
I don't know if we do or not. Debbie says, John, I absolutely love your photography. The Topaz has my interest, and we'll have to look into it more. And that's at topazlabs.com.
Oh yeah, Debbie, you got to get Topaz. You'll love it.
Oh, I was looking. The whole suite is like $469, which puts it up, you know, pretty close to what I'm paying for Photoshop. Well,
you could do they're separate. They're in divisions. You know, I think you can do. I mean, like a quarter. You might not want all of them. You know what I'm saying? So you could do $40 and get one specific one that you want.
Yeah, and you can be patient. They have, they had sales because I bought the whole array for something like $160. It was a great sale. So you need to, you know, see if they don't come up with some more sales. I would hope they would, because you're right. That's very expensive. It's an indicator. I think I'm not promoting that price because that is very expensive. But I'm just saying it's an indicator that it's serious software. It has on the surface, it looks like Glow particularly, looks almost like play software, if you will, you know, like the guy with the bald head, but it's not. It's serious, and it's the variables. I'm not kidding. The variables, especially if you're using 2 or 3 programs on a work, what you put into it is pretty much unique and won't be recreated just exactly that way again. I have actually gone, I will take my work back to Lightroom in the different stages, because if I don't like where I went the next time after I've looked at it a day or two, I will then go back to stage 2 and start again. Okay? And I have, when I sometimes have gone back to stage 2 to do something just a little bit different, I can't get to where I was on the original stage 3. It's going in a little different direction. And at first it's frustrating, and then all of a sudden I embraced that. I thought, this is wonderful. You know, I'm pouring myself into something and creating a unique work.
Well, yeah, and that makes it more like painting, like, you know, because I know when I started painting, I have a concept in mind, and somehow the painting seems to grow on its own.
Yeah. Well,
and it sounds like the same thing.
Once you get familiar with it's everything, you know, you get familiar with stuff. Once you get familiar, you start to know what you need as the framework, the photo going in, to get some kind of an output close to what you're imagining. And you can structure that framework. I'll go into Photoshop with my photograph, and I'll modify the photograph to bring out things that I want these paint programs to bring out. And then within the paint programs, there's so many shades, tones, variables, you know, lights, strokes. There's so many things to change. By the time you're done, you know, it's unique. But the neat thing is, you can kind of you can have a firm hand over how it's coming out. Sometimes you get pleasant surprises, and sometimes you get disappointments. But you have a degree of control. And I'm not a painter, but I would expect there's sometimes what you are starting with and thinking about, and what you end up that it evolves to as you're working on it, can sometimes take a little difference, take a little turn also. And that's happened to me a lot. It's my
well, and you have the same process in painting, but in painting you don't have Control Z. You cannot go backwards.
Well, I've seen people white out or an area or something.
Well, because there's a lot. There is always that.
So I remember the days of white out.
Debbie says there has to be a way to use it as an external plug-in with Lightroom, and I don't know. We'll have to play with it.
You know, yeah. I could play with it, but
I know there's it's a plug-in for Photoshop, but I don't know about Lightroom.
Oh, so Topaz is a plug-in for Photoshop?
Yeah, yeah.
Let me look here real quick.
But I never tried it, and I was trying to think because I wasn't really working with Lightroom when I had the Topaz, so
yeah.
I don't know.
Yes, yeah, I have a link here under Editing in Lightroom, and I can go straight to Topaz Impression or Topaz Glow from Lightroom.
Cool.
So yes, you can.
Yeah.
I haven't done that because part of my workflow is to go into Photoshop.
Right, me too. So.
And we have Christine Lahey, and if I mispronounced your last name, please forgive me. She's tagging to come back to. Yay! Thank you. I think we are actually over time, almost 15 minutes over.
Yes, because Tammy was talking too much.
I
know it. But since she's talked so much and she's been so involved in this show,
I've been actually saying here, going, you show so much enthusiasm. I love that, and you can tell you're passionate about what you do, and that inspires me. So I'm just sitting over here in awe of you.
Well, great. But I guess how do I take that? That's hard. That's interesting. I'm not used
I
to this
like
kind of
that
stuff.
people, because you can tell you're inspired by what you do, and it's contagious when because you can feel the energy, and you can tell what you love to do, and I love that.
Great. Real quick, I just want to correct one impression I may have left about the group that has meant so much to me and has influenced my development so much. It's a successful group. It is just as much, if not more, for the great people that are a part of it, that are so supportive of each other and of me. There's a strong, I mean, you've always got, this outer ring of people that basically use the group, to post their pictures or images and stuff. But we have a very strong inner circle of people that I meet them up with them on Google, on Twitter, and they're behind the scenes in the groups. They're visiting each other's pages. They're visiting my page, and they're just wonderful. And that, boy, once you get that kind of thing going, it just takes off, and I've been holding on.
Well, you got lurkers like me too, because I don't really say all that much within the group, but I find a lot of the artists that I follow from your group.
Huh.
I just kind of quietly lurk.
Well, there's some very, very wonderful and talented people in that group. It's just amazing, and a lot of them are members of many other groups too. So there's some neat people on FAA.
Yeah.
Really
Well,
are.
it looks like we have another question, if you don't mind staying a couple minutes more. Debbie Fran said, okay, here's another question. How do you decide what image will be a feature image in the group? And also, thanks for posting my images as feature images. And I have a couple more remarks after you answer this from the audience.
Okay, I'm going to talk carefully here. I say up front in the group header page, the home page, that the purpose of the group is to promote our work. That's the prime purpose of the group. Now, I feel that one of the internal ways to FAA that you can promote work, we concentrate on external social media platforms to promote work. One of the internal ways you can promote work is to feature it. And I say in the home page, when welcoming people, that my policy, my desire and my impetus is to be as liberal as possible featuring work. The only thing I'm asking for is that you kind of, as the other part of that compact, be very faithful to provide good quality work to the group. And if it's not good quality, I won't feature it. But in any group, you're going to have some work that's better than others, but most of the work, the overwhelming majority of the work that group is producing is good quality work, and I'll feature it. I keep expecting to get my hand slapped by Abby or someone in FAA, about featuring too many people, because I feature most of the work that I get. But I do also reject it. But it's good. You gotta. And I've gone back a couple of times to people say, "Hey, I see all kinds of stuff in your gallery that's better than this. Come on, give me your better stuff." Some people have taken it real well, and a couple have quit. So actually, I quit doing that, but I did at first because I really want the quality to be up there. And every once in a while, in a funny kind of way, in the group discussions, I'll try to introduce another way to reinforce post quality, and the people have been real faithful. The group members, colleagues of mine, I shouldn't say the people, my colleagues have been very faithful about providing good quality work. So I can hold my head up and say I feature as much as I can, and it's most of what I receive.
Well, let's see. Ron says he needs to come back. I totally agree with you, Ron.
Thanks, Ron. I think. Is that because I haven't heard all of Tammy's horse calls yet on her sound effects?
Oh, does that get a like this?
Oh,
I did the wrong.
Oh,
I did the wrong one. Hold on. I don't know which one it is. I
the
can't see. I don't
crickets.
have my glasses. I meant to do the other one.
She's famous for her crickets.
oh, crickets.
Yeah, you don't want the crickets. We've had the crickets here for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, the crickets mean that we have dead air or that somebody has told a really bad joke.
Ah, yeah.
Hasn't
I've
happened.
been known to do that, and I was trying to remind myself before this program to not do that. I don't know if I succeeded or not.
Let's see, Diana Mary Sharpton. Hi, Diana. Haven't seen you in a while.
Hey, Diana.
She
I
wants to know
am.
if you remember her.
I
She's a
do.
group.
Very much. Yep. Matter of fact, I think we communicated on some email a little while ago too, if I remember right. But yes, I do know the name. And
Cool.
good work. She produces good work. It's just
So,
I'm blown away by the people in the group, and I'm very grateful to them.
you have some fabulous artists as part of your group. And that is, again, that's on fineartamerica.com. And the group's name is Images That Excite.
Yeah, images that excite you. Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
And let's see, I only had one other thing that I needed to discuss, or we needed to discuss tonight, and that is next week's show. Next week's show is our community show, and that's for people who have participated in the challenge. Hey, Tammy, you want to tell everyone about the challenge?
Are we doing the challenge next week? Oh my gosh. Dear,
I know, right?
are you talking about the paint by number? Are you talking about the number?
I am, the number
That's
challenge.
next week?
It's next week. So
Oh my goodness. I got to get busy. So I guess, are we all doing paint by numbers? And it can be anything. Okay.
It can be anything with numbers in it.
Right. So get your paint by numbers on, groove on, and turn it into something cool.
That's about it.
Wait, you're gonna be surprised. I'm gonna do something really cool. I'm determined.
Well, this is the second month now. You talk about paint by numbers. So.
I know. I got sidetracked with the water camera. Okay. But now that's out to sea, so now I can go back to the paint by numbers.
And John, I mean, I really hope you'll join the Talk and Art community on Google Plus and join in. If you want to, if you're adamantly opposed to paint by numbers, you can take a photograph of numbers like the one that I have on the actual announcement. You can paint a picture or do a mixed media with numbers. It just has to be something that includes numbers in several forms, or a paint by number.
Oh, okay. All right.
See, I see the wheels spinning.
Yeah.
It's spinning.
Smoke.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Debbie says, yeah, I need to remember. Oh my God, thanks for the reminder. You're welcome.
See? We got 1 week,
and,
people.
Yeah, I know, right? Joyce Dickens says, I feel so bad because I really planned on watching this one. Arizona had a potential customer show up to my little gallery and had to deal with them. I'm going to watch it now. Sorry to have missed it live. Hey, Joyce, customers come first, and they're always right.
Yeah, I agree. Hi, Joyce.
Joyce is another fabulous artist. No,
I recognize Joyce also. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Business is sell. That's the bottom line. But there's nothing wrong with having some fun and developing some relationships, especially when it's helping to support all of us to try to sell. I think that's a wonderful way to go.
Exactly. John, you want to tell everyone how to find you?
How to find me?
Mm-hmm.
You mean like the police department?
Well, no, like websites and social media.
I have, I didn't call that up. I obviously I'm still considering, and I've talked to Arizona about this, starting my own website. But I have a website, an artist's website with Fine Art America, which is on the banner. And sometime here in the near future, I might have my own website with the artist's website as a subset of that. Yeah, because I like dealing with Fine Art America. I'm on Twitter, and I'm at John_M_Bailey on Twitter. And I'm on Facebook. Have a lot of fun on Facebook with my personal page, which I sometimes get mixed up with my photographic page, but I've got both. And
Don't we all?
a lot of people are members of both. And I'm on. I'm playing with Tumblr. I haven't quite cracked the code on that one yet, but I've been on Tumblr for a while now. The group got me going on Google Plus, so I'm on Google Plus, and the group also got me going on Pinterest, and I really like both of them, and I don't have time for anything more. In fact, the problem is, and what I tell some of the people in the group will ask questions, on an email. And I say, well, dabble. The group gives you a great opportunity to try out the different ones because you almost have a ready-made starting network to call on to get established in each one so you can learn how to use it. But probably you're going to find what style of social media platform best suits you, and then maybe really concentrate on a couple. Because in my case, I'm having trouble running full bore on all four of them, or maybe five of them. Yeah,
it's really difficult. And if it wasn't for scheduling software like Buffer and Hootsuite, and I actually am guilty of using both, I couldn't keep up with it. There's no way.
I just started using some scheduling software, and you're right. It helps. But and the other thing is, obviously Facebook's built up for socializing, and that's great relationships. I know this is not readily apparent on Twitter, but I have a great time with relationships on Twitter. I have some people that we've been together now for a couple of years, and then other people come and go, but there's even the come and go, there's a period of time where we do good for each other, and then we're even patting each other on the back and encouraging, and it is relationships at 140 characters or less, but it actually is a form of relationship, and I get quite satisfied by that. Anyway, I'll shut up.
And I totally agree with you. I've built some great relationships on Twitter, and I've had those Twitter relationships actually move to Google Plus,
yes,
where the relationship has even improved further. Joyce is an example of that. Mm-hmm. She made a comment today on Google Plus, and she said that I was her sister from another mother, and she has no idea how precious that was to read that. So Tammy, you want to tell everyone how to find you?
Well, they could find me on my website whenever we get it done.
Which is going to be whenever we can sit down and talk about it now, because I'm fairly close.
And always Google Plus is my main place, Facebook, and working on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, but I'll have to. I need to learn my name on there. Yeah. Memorize it. But I'm a G+ girl. That's where you find me.
And she is seriously. I've seen her in several hangouts at one time. It's crazy.
Yeah, I usually have about 5 or 6 hangouts going at one time. Uh-huh. And, it can get kind of crazy.
Wouldn't that be considered some kind of personality disorder?
Yes. Trust me, it has been that several times over. It can get a little hectic.
Yeah.
So, and everybody knows where you can find me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and Google Plus, all under Arizona Low, or Today's Visions. I have both running on all three. And I'm also on Pinterest as Arizona Low. And of course, you need to come visit todaysvisions.com and join up the fun. And all members get a free site, They get training to use the free site, and they also get at least 2 posts per day. If they have posts that are like a week or less old, then they get posted out twice a day, either to Twitter, Google+, Facebook, or all of the above. So, go meander over to Today's Visions and take a look. And on that note, we actually ran a total hour. Wow, that's a first.
Uh-oh.
I love it.
I'll never live this one down.
Diana, I do not know when we're having Blair Stewart back. He had significant internet problems. So I think part of that's going to be determined on whether or not Blair gets a hardwired. I don't think we can rely on Australian internet Wi-Fi. So that's the last of the questions, and I'm going to say good night. Night, y'all.
Good night.